without loss of enthusiasm. Winston Churchill. Look at this loser. In 1993, this gal had just moved back to her home country of England after a year in Portugal. She's divorced, she has a small child, she's on welfare, she has 3 chapters of an unfinished book that sat in her trunk, and she hasn't done anything with it. This 65-year-old hoser has $105 security check to his name, and he has set out to sell his franchise chicken restaurant to over 1,000 restaurants across the country, and all of them have rejected his offer. This guy, 18 years old, rejected not 1, but 3 times from the University of Southern California School of Cinema. Chances are he'll never direct in Hollywood. A famous fictional boy wizard, delicious greasy fried chicken, and iconic movies such as E.T. and Jaws would never have come to be if the main character of those stories had stopped and rested on their failures. I'm here to tell you today that I'm just like you. My story hasn't turned out just like I thought it would be or anticipated it to be. The characters that have entered my life have been like story-ending disasters rather than fairy tales. But I'm here to tell you, my darlings, there's hope. Your story, your life, is about something more. It's something different, and it's something better. So, buckle up, listen hard. I'm about to drop some truth. This 40-year-old hasn't gone through it for nothing. The greatest discovery of my 4th grade year was the Choose Your Own Adventure books. Remember those? Or maybe your parents told you about them? It was a series of books that had multiple endings, and as you read through the chapter, you could choose from a variety of options. Therefore, you could read the book several times and have different endings each time. Pretty fantastic. It was really incredible to have this amount of choice, this amount of input into something that had always been static before. Pages in a book, once are printed, are done. They're complete. But with these books, suddenly I could have control over what happened and what I thought should happen. The characters, the plot, they were all mine to influence. But with that control came responsibility. So this is the warning that's on every book on the inside cover. Beware and warning, this book is different than other books. You and you alone are in charge of what happens to the story. Yada, yada, yada. So, what's this thing we're after? It's a simple little 7-letter word known as control. Control how the story ends. We can see it, we can visualize it, and we know how perfectly it would go if life would just stay within our course that we've identified for it. Choose our own adventure, and if we don't like the ending, go back a few pages and choose another one to a different result. That seems impossible, right? Now, here's the phenomenal part. I'm telling you, we can. We can't revisit the past and change what's been done, but we can inform the future. Make different choices, change the path, shake up the universe, order a macchiato instead of a mocha. Remember that warning that was inside the front cover of the book? Let's change up some of those words. So, suddenly it becomes a mantra. This life is different than other lives. You, and you alone, are in charge of what happens in this life. There are dangers and choices, adventures and consequences, and you get to use all your numerous talents and much of your enormous intelligence. It's LATI, right? The right decision could end up amazing, even life. And don't despair. Anytime you can go forward and make another choice, alter the path of your story, and change its result. Oh, doesn't that feel good? So, vegetarians, I want you to look away for just a moment, and I'll come back to you. A steak isn't a steak without a good marinade. The tangy lemon juice, the pungent Worcestershire sauce, and I think that's how you say it. The eye-stinging onion come together to break down the steak and bring out those natural flavors. And now for our non-meat-loving friends, another example. Vegetarians, go ahead and look up. When you start a garden, you hoe it. You chip away at those dirt clumps and you pull weeds and their tethered roots that reach deep into the earth. And afterwards, the dirt is smooth. Then you can plant your beloved seeds. These seeds, these full of hope, little nuggets, full of potential of what could be. But any gardener worth their salt knows the power of manure and the effect that it can have on the bounty of your blooms. I know you're probably scratching your head as I click, there we go, and wondering how does steak marinade and manure fit into your story, your life? Is this the part where the TEDx speaker loses their audience and goes off into a weird tangent and we scan forward? Stick with me, people. I'm very close to the good stuff. So, what's been the manure of your life? It's the broken engagement and the unworn wedding dress that hangs in a closet down the hall. It's in the family dinners where there's more sounds of silverware scraping plates than of genuine connection and of laughter. And it's in the hospital rooms with sounds of those repetitive beeps and tubes going into your loved ones' bodies, and it's connected to machines dripping chemo, trying to kill a cancer that just won't go away. And it's in the dirty, dusty tears of a 12-year-old's lost baseball game where he threw the game-ending pitch. It's in this marinade of life, this drippy, this salty, tangy, wet sadness, that your story is getting better. It's getting juicy, and it's breaking down into what will come. It's getting better by the salt of your tears and the tangy words of hurt. I promise you, dear ones, it's getting better in the bitterness of rejection, of failure, and of loss. The stench of manure in life is making for bright blooms deep within the earth of your soul. And we so want those blooms, those beautiful, beautiful blooms. We want them now. Not now, but soon. Soon the spring will come and the blooms will sprout and that tiny little inkling of a seed will turn into the flower that you had always dreamed of. There's a certain degree of power that comes from putting a bookmark in a book. You know that feeling of just bookmark right there. This is an actual shot of bookmarks that I've collected over the years. Special thanks to my Nana for always including them in birthday cards since I was a young girl. Hi, Nana. So the act of putting a bookmark is powerful. It's telling the book, I'm stopping here. I'm ready to pause, take a breath. But I want to remember where I was so I can come back to it and carry on where I left off. Maybe, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll let that bookmark sit in that crease right there for years. I'm sure you can tell where I'm going with this metaphor here of the bookmarks. Sometimes in life, you have to put a bookmark in it. Sometimes you have to set down that story that you've been holding on to and put a bookmark neatly in the crease of the pages, carefully close that book, set it on a shelf, and walk away. Walk away. Pick up another book. Maybe this time it's a book of poetry or prose or of romance or of heartbreak. But I'm telling you, it's okay to set down that story that you thought that you had to hold on to that's not serving you anymore. It's okay. It's there. You can come back to it if you want to. Think of our old pal J.K. Rowling. She had all the answers in that trunk of her car where she kept the manuscript of unfinished chapters. In those unfinished chapters, she had the future that she wanted, and she sat on it for 3 years, 36 months of marinade. But when she picked up that story to finish it, suddenly she was ready. Ready for what came next. Ready to write what would become a major empire and ignite a fire in young hearts everywhere, to fall in love with stories on pages instead of on screens. So I know what you might be thinking, but I'm not a scholar in psychology, although I have read Wikipedia. So the following explanation should be taken with a grain of salt and pepper. 40-year-old's got it. Carl Jung, a psychologist who studied along with Sigmund Freud, believed that the collective unconsciousness was shared by everyone, everywhere, across time. There they are. In fact, it was in this thought that split these two scientists apart, because Freud didn't agree. See ya, Freud. According to this philosophy, there's a common thread in our occurrences, and thus we have similar experiences, more or less. The characters, the plot, the locations, all might be different, but there's a commonness in how we feel pain and joy and happiness and despair. So, how do we weave our stories together? A wise man once told me that at a certain juncture, your story isn't yours anymore. It's yours to share with others, to enhance their lives, instead of closed up in pages that are never opened again. And by sharing these stories, somehow those marinated memories, filled with stingy tears and shadows of dark heartbreak, don't sting as much as they used to. Instead, they can help inform others in their own story. Dear friends, I tell you this today. Pick up your story or lay it down for a bit with a bookmark in its place. Embrace the pen and choose your own adventure and write those final chapters with gusto and fervor, with the blooms of tomorrow. The first chapters, they're done. They're in print. The ink has long set, and there's nothing more to do than turn past them. Flip the pages. There's power in that. And so, I challenge each of you, choose your own adventure. Be the author of your own adventure and story, and share it with others, because I promise